Last time, we talked about the surface-level patterns that keep intelligent people financially stuck. The analysis paralysis, the active income trap, the way intellectual status gets mistaken for actual wealth. And if that episode hit close to home, I want you to brace yourself. Because today, we're going deeper. What we covered before were behaviors, things you do or don't do that produce predictable financial outcomes. Today, we're going underneath the behavior. We're going into the operating system, the cognitive architecture that your brain is running quietly in the background, the one that feels like clear thinking, that feels like logic, that feels like exactly the kind of careful reasoning a smart person should be doing. And we're going to look at 3 specific errors embedded in that system that are capable of undoing years of work, years of discipline, years of doing everything right, in a handful of decisions. Here's the part that makes this genuinely difficult to fix. These errors don't feel like errors. They feel like strengths. That is precisely what makes them so expensive. Let's start with the one that is probably cost intelligent. Investors more money than almost any other cognitive pattern in the history of financial markets. And it starts with a belief that seems not just reasonable, but obvious. The belief that if you understand the world better than most people, you can predict what it's going to do next better than most people. Think about how natural that assumption feels. You've spent your life developing the ability to analyze complex systems. You can see connections that other people miss. You understand the underlying mechanics of things. You read widely, think carefully, and you've been right about complicated questions many times before. So when you look at the market, at an industry, at a company, at an economic trend, and you form a view, it doesn't feel like a guess. It feels like an informed conclusion. And informed conclusions, in every other area of your life, have been reliable. So you act on them. You time your investments based on what you believe is coming. You move in and out of positions when your analysis tells you the window is opening or closing. You concentrate your holdings in areas where you've done the deepest research, because spreading it across everything feels like abandoning your edge. Why would you diversify away from your best idea? And over again, the market does something your analysis didn't account for. Not because your analysis was sloppy, but because financial markets are not complex systems that reward superior analysis, the way most intelligent people assume. They are adaptive systems, filled with millions of other participants, many of them extremely intelligent, all of them acting on their own analysis simultaneously. The edge you think you have has already been priced in by someone else who thought they had the same edge. And the randomness that remains, after all, of that collective intelligence has been applied, is genuinely, stubbornly, mathematically difficult to beat on a consistent basis. The research on this is not ambiguous. Study after study, across decades, across markets, across asset classes, shows that active trading by individual investors, even highly educated, analytically sophisticated individual investors, produces returns that trail simple passive strategies over the long run, not occasionally, systematically. The more frequently you trade, the more taxes and transaction costs you generate, the more chances you give yourself to be wrong at exactly the wrong moment, and the more you interrupt the one process that actually builds wealth reliably, which is compounding over time. Compounding is boring. That's the problem. For an active, curious, analytical mind, the instruction to buy a diversified index, reinvest the returns, and wait 20 years reads less like a strategy and more like an insult. Surely there's more to it than that. Surely your ability to understand things is worth more than just sitting still. It isn't. Not in this context. And the most financially successful thing an intelligent person can often do is to recognize, clearly and without ego, that this is one of the few domains where their intelligence is not an asset, where the correct strategy is to stop trying to win and start trying not to lose. To get the market's return reliably, every year, without attempting to beat it, and to redirect the energy you would have spent trying to outthink the market toward the things your intelligence actually can improve. Use your mind to build income. Use your income to build assets, and then let time do the work that no amount of analysis can substitute for. The second error is one that shows up constantly in people who are analytically sharp and financially disciplined. And from the outside, and even from the inside, it looks like a virtue. It looks like being careful. It looks like not wasting money. It is, in fact, one of the more insidious ways that a certain kind of financial thinking quietly destroys value. Here's the scenario. You need to make a purchase, or hire someone, or sign up for a service. And before you do anything, you research thoroughly. You compare every option. You read the reviews, look at the alternatives, calculate the cost differences, and optimize for the lowest possible outlay that still meets your stated criteria. You are, by any reasonable definition, being smart about money. And then you do this for the next purchase, and the one after that, and the vendor comparison that takes 3 hours, and the subscription you spend 45 minutes deciding whether to cancel because it's $12 a month, and the hour and a half you spend looking for a promo code before you buy something that costs $30. At no point in this process does the calculation ever include the cost of the time itself. This is what behavioral economists call the focusing illusion, combined with temporal discounting. But in plain terms, it's simpler than that. It's a mindset that treats money as the only resource with real value, and treats time as essentially free. And for someone who is intelligent and capable, and whose time is actually worth a great deal, that is a catastrophically inaccurate model. If your skills, your experience, your career output, your ability to generate income is worth $100 an hour, then every hour you spend optimizing a $20 decision is a transaction where you are spending 5 times more than you're saving. You just can't see the expense because it doesn't show up in any account. It disappears silently. And the only evidence it leaves behind is a vague sense that you're always busy and never quite ahead. The wealthy mindset, and I don't mean this in a motivational poster sense, I mean it in a strictly functional, operational sense, is not organized around minimizing spending. It's organized around maximizing return on every resource, including time. The question is not just, what does this cost, but what does this produce relative to what I put in? And for high-value uses of your time, the answer to whether you should pay someone else to handle a low-leverage task is almost always yes. Not because you can't do it, because doing it yourself costs more than it saves, even when the bill says 0. This reframe matters because it directly affects where you invest your attention. Every hour you redirect away from price optimization and toward income generation, skill building, relationship development, or genuine rest that makes your high output hours more productive is worth multiples of what the optimization would have saved. The math is not close. The only reason it doesn't feel that way is that the saved money is visible and the lost time is not. Stop being a sophisticated cheapskate. Start being a ruthless allocator of your own hours. They are worth more than you're charging for them. Now, the third error is, in my opinion, the deepest one, because it doesn't just affect how you manage money. It affects how you relate to knowledge itself. And it's something that educated, curious people need to hear, even when, especially when, it's uncomfortable. It's called complexity bias, and it is the brain's tendency to assign greater credibility and greater value to explanations and solutions that are sophisticated, layered, and difficult to fully grasp over solutions that are straightforward. The way this shows up financially is remarkably consistent. You understand that wealth is built through boring, simple, time-tested principles. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference in things that grow. Don't touch it. Wait. You understand this. You probably understood it years ago, and yet something keeps pulling you away from it. Something keeps making it feel insufficient. Like there must be more to it than that. Like surely that can't be the whole answer. Because if it were, everyone would be doing it, and it wouldn't require any expertise. So the search begins for the strategy with more moving parts, for the asset class that requires deeper analysis to understand, for the investment thesis that most people don't know about yet, because discovering it required the kind of research and reasoning that most people can't do, for the framework that synthesizes multiple disciplines and produces insights unavailable to the merely diligent. And in that search, Some of the most intelligent people in the world have walked directly into option strategies they couldn't fully model, leveraged positions that seemed perfectly logical until the correlation assumptions broke down, illiquid alternative investments that made complete theoretical sense but had no real exit when they needed one, and highly concentrated bets on ideas that were intellectually compelling and financially ruinous. The complexity wasn't a coincidence. The complexity was the appeal, because simplicity feels like a ceiling, and a high-functioning mind does not like ceilings. But here is what's true. The most robust solutions to most long-term problems are almost always simple. Not easy. Simple. There's an important distinction: eating whole foods, sleeping enough, exercising consistently is a simple formula for physical health. Following it is not easy. But the formula itself requires no sophistication to understand. The sophistication, if you want to call it that, is in the sustained execution over years and decades. The same is true for financial health. The formula is simple. The discipline to apply it without being seduced by complexity is where the real work lives. Genuine intelligence is not the ability to generate complex frameworks. It is the ability to find the simplest true thing inside a complex situation, and then protect that truth against all the noise that wants to complicate it. The greatest investors in history, and I mean the ones who actually built and kept multi-generational wealth, are almost universally known for the clarity of their principles, not the complexity of their strategies. Simple, consistent, patient, boring enough that it never makes for a good story until the ending. Your brain is going to keep telling you that the simple answer can't be right. It's going to keep looking for the version with more variables, more nuance, more intellectual texture. And every time it does, you need to recognize that instinct for what it is. It's not insight, it's ego. It's the part of you that needs the answer to be hard, so that finding it means something. It needs to reflect your capability. And financial markets do not care about your capability. They care about your behavior over time. Let the boring answer be right. Protect it from your own intelligence, and then execute it for long enough that the results speak for themselves. Now here's what connects all three of these errors at the deepest level, and why I think this might be the most important thing we've covered across any of these episodes. The common thread is that each of these errors is intelligence being used defensively rather than productively. The market timing is intelligence trying to protect itself from the vulnerability of not knowing. The over-optimization of small expenses is intelligence trying to demonstrate its value in the absence of bigger wins. The complexity bias is intelligence protecting its own sense of relevance against the humiliation of a simple answer. In every case, the brain is solving for the wrong problem. It's solving for the preservation of a self-image rather than the creation of an outcome. And the gap between those two objectives is where the money goes. The reset is not about learning new information. You probably already know most of what needs to be done. The reset is about asking an honest question every time you're about to make a financial decision. Am I doing this because it is the best path to the outcome I want? Or am I doing this because it is the most interesting path? Or the path that feels most consistent with how smart I believe I am? Those are not always the same path. And knowing the difference consistently and choosing the first one, even when it's boring, even when it offers nothing to prove, is the financial version of the same principle we've been building across every episode. Real strength doesn't perform, it just produces. Next time, we're shifting into territory that a lot of people find deeply uncomfortable. And that's exactly why it matters. We're going to talk about how to identify the people in your life who are quietly using your intelligence, your generosity, and your trust against you. Not dramatically, not obviously. The ones who are so good at it, you've probably been explaining away the signs for years. Make sure you're subscribed. That conversation is not one you want to come to late.